Merry Christmas, everyone, and welcome back to Talk the Walk with me, Sarah Wong. We have the LA Taco King, Esdras Ochoa, with us now to bring us food and his stories. Thank you very much, Esdras, for making the time. Happy to see you here.
Happy to be here, Sarah. Thank you.
We're just talking about your culinary journey, essentially. I know that you have restaurants in Los Angeles, in Austin, places that embrace, if not worship, Mexican food. Why do you choose Hong Kong as your one of the first overseas outposts? And what do you see here that others are missing?
I didn't think that far ahead when the opportunity was presented to me. Like I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Baja. Baja was Mexicali specifically. It was a city that was founded by Chinese people back in the late 1800s. So that always fascinated me. The fact that people from the other side of the world in the 1800s came and settled in Baja and created the city of Mexicali, which is now the capital of Baja. I've always been curious about Asia, and then when I moved to LA, I discovered all these communities of Asian descent, all the Korean community, the Vietnamese, Chinese, Filipino, and I was really attracted and really intrigued by the customs and the cuisine. So when I met John and Daniel, which are my business partners in Channing from 11 West Side, they were from Hong Kong and LA. They presented this opportunity for me. They were customers of mine in the restaurants in LA. We hit it off and became really good friends. And when they offered this opportunity, I jumped on it just so I could see Asia. And it was a perfect opportunity to do it in a way where I could come on a regular basis. After I landed here, I realized what an insanely amazing country this is here in Hong Kong, how diverse it is and how modern it is, but yet it holds its customs to the old world as well. So for me, it was magical. And now, fast forward to 5 years later, which is now, I realize it is the perfect place to have something like a Mexican restaurant because people are hungry. People here are well-traveled. They want to know more. They want to learn more. And they appreciate food that comes from different countries and different backgrounds. So I think there's no better place to have a restaurant like the stuff we do than in Hong Kong at the moment.
Interesting. And I know that your wife is also Asian. Where is she from?
She is. She's Filipina.
Oh, I see. And like you said, like Asian culture, right? There's more nuance into just Asian culture in general. Like there's Vietnamese cuisine, there's Japanese, Korean. I was wondering, do you find any difference in running a Mexican restaurant in an Asian landscape in the United States, for example, in Los Angeles, than in Hong Kong, which is a drastically different Asian landscape, probably, primarily based on Cantonese food and Chinese food, apart from, Vietnamese and other Asian culture?
Yes, absolutely. It's a whole different ballgame being here in Hong Kong. At first, it was very challenging. We opened the restaurant in 2017. In September, I first stepped foot in Hong Kong. I think it was in February. And I gave myself like an extra month before I started to work just to soak in the culture and just to eat and walk the streets and just taste what it feels to be a local here. It was all new to me. It was a whole different world. I knew a little bit of the cuisine from LA, but nothing like this. So this helped me a lot to kind of understand the palate of the locals here and also to see what my options were as far as like ingredients, stuff that I would use for the restaurant. It was very challenging because at the time there wasn't a lot of things that you could find of Mexican cuisine here. So I had to get very creative with the local ingredients and just a very few things I had to import myself from LA, which basically comes from Mexico.
When we're talking about Mexican restaurants in Hong Kong, there isn't a lot of options here. And I wonder, what's your experience like breaking into that market in Hong Kong, to bring Mexican food into the palate of Hong Kong residents and the Asian population here?
One thing that made it kind of easy for me was, again, never I would have imagined this would have helped back then, but being from Mexicali, right? This is Mexicali, the part of Baja where there's a big Chinese population. our Mexican cuisine in that area has a lot of flair of Chinese Cantonese style. For instance, our carne asada, which you see it throughout the country of Mexico, but in our specific region, the classic marinade for carne asada has soy sauce into the recipe. Um, so we grew up like eating soy sauce like another condiment in our household, even though we're Mexican. So you apply that with your lime, your garlic, and your chiles, your peppers, and you have a peculiar Mexican profile that it has Asian or Chinese Cantonese flair to it. So kind of that background really helped me to. It was kind of like, okay, well, already doing this. This is my style, just by default, and just adding on, a little bit more to that. That made it really easy.
What's the biggest commonality between Mexican and Chinese food? I'm very curious because I myself cannot eat spicy food. So every time they said, "Oh, you missed the essence of Mexican food," and I was like, "Oh, that's a bummer." So what's your take?
You know what? What do you mean you don't eat spice, sir? What's going on?
I don't know, like Cantonese palate. So yeah, so Mexican food is known for being spicy, but Cantonese food not so much. So what binds them together?
I think there's a misconception that Mexican food has to be spicy. That's not necessarily the case. We use a lot of spice in our cuisine, different types of spice, but it's not necessarily the case with Mexican food. A lot of the different spices we use, they're not necessarily spicy. They're more of a flavor base in a lot of the dishes. For instance, chile guajillo, you use it in a lot of dishes. It's red and it provides like an earthy, smoky flavor to a lot of dishes, but it's not spicy at all. And there's multiple peppers like this. But when people think of chile or pepper, they think spice. That's not the case necessarily with our cuisine. When it comes to Chinese food and Mexican, we eat a lot of pork in Mexico and different preparations, and which is why Chinese food is one of my favorite cuisines, because you guys like perfect the pork to the T. So much technique when you guys cook pork, and it's phenomenal. So I think we kind of bridge the commonalities between both cuisines, and you have a really good cuisine.
Oh, wow. I stand corrected. Learned so much new things today about cooking. So you mentioned the mass rules, the difference of mass rules between Hong Kong and in the States. I wonder what else do you find different in running a restaurant in the era of pandemic between these two places?
One thing that has helped us along the way, even before the pandemic, that has been very crucial for our company here in Hong Kong, is that all the partners, all of us, all four of us are American, Mexican American. My partner Daniel is Mexican Korean. He's American Korean, and then Channing and John, they're Hong Kong and American. But where our home base is still the States, so we're used to running companies like the States. I don't think there's many companies here that run their restaurants the way we do. For instance, we have our full-time employees on a 45-hour salary. They work 45 hours a week. If they work more, we pay them overtime. We give them the service charge. I don't think there's a lot of people that do that here. So the guys, they appreciate that. It's new to them, but it's like a good new. Like, wow, that's cool. They give them the sense that we care, their family. It's just how we do it back in the States, and we're accustomed to that. And running our business like that has helped us a lot. Like in the kitchen, I like to have big kitchens. That's what I'm used to back home. And it's not normal here, So when people come into the restaurant, we have a walk-in cooler. It's important for me to sacrifice the space of that kitchen to have a walk-in cooler. So as a chef, you appreciate those things, and it's like a sign that we care about our team, we care about our guys, and that's kept loyalty within our company, and people are happy.
Okay, before I let you go, Esdras, tell me more about your vision of what you try to achieve here in Hong Kong's culinary landscape and going into 2022. What are you trying to see happen?
So my biggest goal, and it goes back to what makes me happy and it gets me excited, is I'm a proud Mexican American. I love our culture. I love our cuisine, and as a Mexican ambassador to the world, my goal is to share these flavors, the culture, the little things that make Mexico and America great. That is my goal. So, in the future, that's what I plan to do at the new restaurants. I want people to taste, to visit Mexico with me as an experience when they walk into our doors. That's the biggest accomplishment when people are happy, they leave happy, and they felt like they went to Mexico, for a moment.
Oh, wow. Well, I'll add Mexico on my list when the quarantine rules were lifted eventually one day.
Put it at the very top. At the
Thank
very
you
top
so
of
much.
your list.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chef, today for sharing your
It's my
stories and your
pleasure.
experience with us. Well, please come back, and I hope that when you come back next time, we'll do that face-to-face in your restaurant. Thank
I
you.
would love that, sir. And see you guys at the restaurant.
Okay, see you then, and good night.